Hey YouTube world, what's going on? Mark here from TST Industries, back in the garage with another installation video. And in today's video, Bart will be guiding you through the installation process of our TST LED rear pod turn signal kits for the Aprilia RS 660, along with our universal license plate light. Now, as you can see beside me, we already have our Elite 1 fender eliminator in the low mount configuration already installed. As you can see, it's completely streamlined, got rid of the big arm hanging off the rear of the bike, provided a nice clean installation, and best of all, it was plug and play with the help of our harness converters for the turn signals. But for those of you who purchased a high mount system, you may be wondering, what about us? Do not fret, we have the solution here for you. As you can see, this is our high mount adjustable system with our BL6 pod turn signals. So we have our echoes here, our BL6 signals here, different signals for different tastes, but this is a pretty straightforward installation process. As I mentioned, Bart is going to take you through the steps, so let's go ahead and jump right in.
All right guys, so we've ditched the fender on this beautiful Aprilia here and we've replaced that component with the TST Industries fender eliminator. What you see here is our rear mount adjustable version. Later in this video, we're going to get into some other versions that we do offer and you guys may have interest in. Now we're going to add to the mix the installation of some of the lighting. So first we're going to do a license plate light, and then we're going to jump into what to do about signals. We offer several different signal types for this vehicle. I'm going to show you how to install the different nuances on the high mount and also on the low mount version. So let's first install the license plate light. That is a fairly simple procedure. I will need to drop down my assembly here. Usually I try to get my lighting installation right into the flow of the installation of the hardware components. This was just easier for me to present. As you can see, we've taken the bike back to the state during which you are installing this chunk onto the bike. This will make our presentation here simple. Now, you may have chosen the adjustable version of our fender eliminator or the standard version. The installation of the license plate light is virtually the same. The license plate light rests in the same exact area on both of these, so I will only present on one. If you bought the other version, it'll basically be the same. So our license plate light sits here on top of the license plate bracket, right behind the actual license plate. The wire exits the lighting package right through the center here. We're going to line it up like this, and then we are going to follow the routing that has been cut into the closeout. This will enable penetration into the bike. We do have a wiring window that goes through the subtray here. You can see right to the top. That's how we are going to route this guy up into the bike. Our spacer has to make it back in here. Please follow the directions in our fender eliminator portion videos for the correct spacer, orientation, and screw and everything. Just going to start the thread here so that I have a self-captive system. And then we will make sure that the wire doesn't get snagged on anything. Okay, now I have a self-captive system. I will need to ensure that that wire is actually routed through the appropriate channel here. With this still loose, I'm arranging the wire going in properly, and then I'm gonna actually tighten down on the screw in a subsequent step. This wire is in the form of a cable that holds two shielded wires inside and an outer casing. The outer casing is kind of flat. What we want to do is make sure that it's routed like this up into the bike, making sure that it's not twisted in this fashion. So you want it flat against the aluminum piece. You can leave just a little bit of slack here and then cinch it up while you're putting pressure on the parts. And that right there will be pretty good. I like to put pressure on here to lock it in place. And then I'll tighten down all the way to bottom. And usually I back off a quarter turn and I put in the other fasteners for the closeout that go through here. Those are detailed in our fender eliminator videos. All right, that's looking good. We tighten everything at the very, very end of the entire installation. So now we have our license plate here. We would now install the license plate on here, hop up top, and connect our wiring. Let's go ahead and hop up top. I'll show you the details of the wiring with and without our sub harness for signals. And then we will move on to the signal installation portion of this video. Once we hop up here, we realize we have a very, very long wire coming from the license plate light. So we have a choice. We either route it through here, stow it away in its original form, or we cut it. If you decide to cut it, just make sure that you stick out the appropriate amount of wire and strip off that wire about 3.5, 4 millimeters. This looks like 5, this is fine also. I'm gonna do that right now because I don't like to have too much wire bulk. But again, this is optional. If you wanna just approach it in a simple fashion, you just stow that away. All right, now this is looking good. If you are not using our sub harness for signal connection, which we've made to serve a plug and play connection on signals and then also present 2 separate wires for license plate light connection. If you're not using this, you'll have to wire right into here, and I'll tell you which wires in just a moment. If you are using this, this is the simplest possible way of wiring signals and license plate light. You have plug and play bullet connectors for signals, and then you'll wire red to blue and black to black here. If you are not using this, then your red wire will connect to yellow wire here on the bike side of this connector, and then your black wire will connect to the blue. And there's 2 blues here. It's the dark blue I'm talking about. The light blue is part of the signaling system. All right, since we are going after the simplest possible connection type, we are going to be using our TST Industries sub harness. We will be subsequently wiring in signals. So I'm just gonna put this in right now. We're gonna make all of our connections to here. Our license plate lights ship with these posi tap connectors. This is the simplest way to make a connection from a wire to a wire without a factory OEM connector. We unscrew the lower, larger diameter cap from the body of the connector. It has a split in it. The split fits around a wire that we are trying to connect into, like so. Let me take the body of the connector. It has a little piercing element and threads onto this cap. As we thread this on, the little piercing element penetrates the shielding of this wire and makes our connection for us. Then we take off the smaller top cap, and there is a conductor in here. We need to get the appropriate wire through the cap, go from the non-threaded side towards the threaded side, have about 3 millimeters protrude past the end. Get that folded into the body of the connector and thread it in. I like to apply pressure on the wire so that it stays seated as I turn the little cap, give it a little tug test, and that looks good. I'm gonna repeat the steps on the other positive wire. Okay, once this is done, I like to give it a test. You can see here, we do have light. So this connection is made. If this is all you're installing, you're not installing signals from this point forward, I would go in the reverse order of disassembly. We are going to install signals on top of this system, so I'm now going to take down our fender eliminator and then show you how to install it with the signals in place. Once again, whether you've chosen adjustable or standard, same thing holds true. It's the same installation of signals on top of this chunk, so we'll just stay with the adjustable. We have a multitude of different signal types that we do offer. We're just gonna go with our BL6 for this installation. Installation of signals on this setup is exactly the same no matter what you've chosen, so I'm just gonna go with our most popular. The kit that will be helping us install these guys on here is our pod signal mounting kit. We use L brackets behind the license plate bracket, and the license plate actually goes over in the rear, and then that presents us with the mounting locations for our signals. So what I'll do first is pre-configure our signals on the L brackets. Some of our signals come with a flat washer and a split washer. This is one of those. We're gonna forego the split washer. I always like to arrange these things visually so I make sure I have the proper orientation. Our BL6 signals are side specific. We do have TST Industries engraved in the back portion. If it's not upright, it's in the wrong orientation. So if you do flip it, you'll have it upside down. That's one way to tell. We also have flat lens engagement and curved lens engagement. The curved goes on top. It's a little bit more cosmetic and it's an indicator. So let's feed these guys through the L brackets like so. Flat washer nut. Get this down by hand. We will do final adjustment and tightening while already on the bike. All right, now we're looking good. One note about the actual fastening hardware. If you are using our adjustable fender eliminator, this portion is thicker than our standard. As you can see, this is much thinner. For the purpose of using the setup with this bracket, we have 3 washers per side. When using this setup with the adjustable, we will forgo one of the washers for each side, and the stack up will look like this. Screw, washer, license plate bracket, signal bracket, washer, nut. All right, let me grab the license plate real quick. And I'll just reverse this for a second. I just like to get these tight enough so that I don't have a sloppy chunk, and then I will retune the positioning and tightening while the system's already on the bike. So let's repeat the steps on this side. Now, if you are using a license plate light on this setup, obviously you would need to get this in here during this step and route it up through here like I showed in the previous segment. For simplicity of demonstration, I will forego that step since I already showed it. You'll just have to combine it if you're using both sets of equipment. So now, here's a consideration we have to make. At this point, we already have things pretty much in the orientation they're going to be in, and the lengths of wires are what they're going to be. we can either scrunch these wires like this and tie them off like so. The need for that is because we need only these bare wires going in through the routing area. What I prefer to do is get my wires to the correct length that I like here, and then cut off the excess shielding, outer shielding only. So I am gonna perform it the way I like it best and leave it up to you guys to make the final choice for your situation. I'm going to use a couple wire ties here to help myself with the positioning and making sure that the shielding stays butted up to my signals. That way I don't have wire exposure and everything is black to silver to black, matching the whole theme of the bike. That's looking pretty good here. I know that I have to cut off about 1.5 inch portion of this shielding from here up. So I will have to do that very carefully to not nick the wires from within. I make a small incision, bend it over, and then nibble around, making sure that I dodge any of the conductors. And I'm just gonna slice it in half instead of fighting getting it over the connectors. This is a much easier approach to getting rid of this. All right, so I did leave kind of a jagged edge, so I'm just gonna neaten that up a little bit. Okay, that's good. Now I'm just gonna match the other shielding to that same length. All right, now that's looking pretty good. These wires will now be able to enter into our routing channel and fit in there properly. So you can see here, we do have a channel that guides the wires up and around the closeout and into that wire routing hole left behind in the subtray on the bike. And then when this is all assembled, everything's pretty close together and cosmetic, so it should be pretty good. I am gonna employ just a little bit of tape to help me during the assembly. This will make my assembly less cumbersome. So I'm gonna tape it on the outside and inside. The tape inside will remain, the tape outside I will remove later. This just makes it into a nice, tight, neat chunk that I will be able to articulate in there, no problem. Since we've done the bulk of the complications here, I'm going to actually add my license plate light in here so that I can show you guys the entire chunk installation in addition with the license plate light. All right, I'm back on the bike now. I have our pre-built chunk ready to go in. I've placed my screw and spacer in here. Let's route some of this wiring up to the top. We're going to take a similar approach as in the previous segment of this video where we did just a license plate light. I'm going to start the thread on this one screw carefully, make sure that it bites, get 2 or 3 turns in, and then let's make sure that we have our bulk distributed correctly. I like to keep a little bit of slack on the license plate light wire. That is in case you're going to change the angle on the license plate, you have plenty of slack to not strain that wire. Now, as you press that in, make sure that you're not placing pressure on any of the wires. Once you validate that, you can go ahead and tighten down on the rear screw. Once this is done, we could take away the tape that we placed for wire keeping. Now everything's looking pretty good here. Let's hop up top, connect our harness into the bike, and now we're going to have to make the signal connection. For the connection phase here, I have not kept track of which positive is which side. So we have 4 females, 4 males. What we're gonna do is connect the black to black first. That does not matter, they're all common ground. When I make these connections, I just ensure that once these connectors are snapped together, I keep my insulating cap over them. I want to prevent possibility of a short circuit as much as possible. All right, I have black to black, and now we will have to plug one in and use a system of elimination to figure out which side's which. I actually got lucky. I have the right side flashing. This is my correct pin out, so I'm just gonna connect the other one. If during this phase you've reversed it, you're gonna wanna go back, unplug it, and just reverse it back to where it should be. Now, we are insulated, but these do have a tendency to slide around a little bit, so I'm gonna go one step beyond and use a little bit of electrical tape to tie all of these insulating caps down to the wires. This will eliminate the possibility of a short circuit and blown fuses in inoperable equipment. The positive wires are the most important here. Green, brown, yellow, yellow. The grounds are redundant, but we're gonna insulate them anyway, or lock them down rather. If you are so inclined, after locking these down, you may wanna wind an additional winding of electrical tape around the whole bulk of this, making it one neat package. Next time you need to drop this whole fender eliminator assembly, it will just go down as an entire chunk. You just unplug it here, and that'll permit you to take the whole thing down. So because of this, I am going to get a little winding of tape on here, make it into one tight package. I'm also going to tie my license plate light wire into this bundle in the appropriate length. And that way I just have one run of wire for everything. All right, so now we have our fender eliminator chunk with the license plate on it, all the lighting still on it, and we have one single plug and play lighting bundle. This is very similar to the OEM setup. Now we are configured really nicely in here. It's a matter of distributing our bulk in here. Before we proceed to the bulk distribution, I would urge you to get the 2 forward screws into the fender eliminator like we showed in our fender eliminator instructional video. And then for bulk distribution in here, that's basically up to you. You use your imagination. Once those screws are in, you can pretty much just S-fold the wire over itself like so. There's plenty of hiding space in here. It just stows away like this, and then you get your latch in place, and everything's kept in there really nicely. All right, everything else beyond this point from up top is captured in the reverse order of disassembly in our fender eliminator video, so I will not make this redundant step. We're just gonna hop down here and I'll show you how to get everything tightened down here and finalize everything from this view. At this point in the game, we still have the signals loose here, and they may not have been leveled and aligned properly, so we're gonna take care of that now. 10mm open-ended wrench on the nut from the backside, 4mm Allen from the outside. First, I'm gonna center my screw and washers on the location where I want my outside hardware to be. And at the same time, I will have to make sure that my signal is level and adjusted inboard, outboard to where I like it. All right, so this is looking better and better. Once I get it level, looking at it from the rear, I will try to get my light beam direction parallel with the ground. And by hand, I'm gonna tighten down on that stud nut for the signal. Okay, now I like where I am outboard, inboard wise on the signal. The signal is level and the signal is firing parallel to the ground. I'm gonna go ahead and lock down this connection. Perform the same steps on this side. Make sure that I have a matching look. The nut on the stud of these signals is a 12 millimeter. I'm going to be using an open-ended wrench to tighten that down. A note on the safe use of these nuts is you are turning a nut against an overmolded stud inside a piece of rubber. This is meant to suspend your signals in case you hit something. They have a smaller chance of getting damaged or ripped out. Now, if you over tighten this connection, you are straining that rubber. So go to the friction point and then maybe another quarter turn, maybe half, and then leave it at that. The friction between the actual signal stud and the mounting bracket will keep it from rotating, so no worries there. Now these guys are looking pretty good. Before I hop up to the top and start reassembling everything, I'm gonna give it one more try, make sure everything is working correctly. This way I don't have any surprises after I've built the entire system. Okay, we're looking good here. So, the rest of this will involve the reverse order of removal of all the components. That I've already covered in our fender eliminator video, so please look in there and that'll guide you in how to get all these parts back together. We're now going to jump into the demonstration of signal and license plate light installation of the low mount version fender eliminator. You can see here I'm holding several different types of signal, and for their installation we have our pod signal mounting kit. For this particular instance, we are going to back out this screw, get this L bracket underneath the license plate bracket sandwich in between the bracket and the sub tray, and then replace that screw. Subsequently, we will be fitting a signal into here protruding outward. So we need to make a consideration for that. Some of our signals have a longer stalk, so they will stick out quite a bit. Now, typically a passenger rider will have a foot here going up and over. Still, there is a possibility of a contact, so I'll leave the choice up to you, but I will recommend our lowest profile signals, the Echoes. And the Echoes also have this really cool feature where you could change this ring to match some styling on your bike. These come stock with a silver ring. I've changed them to red because we're going for a red theme. We also have red license plate hardware, so you want to get all of these components to match. So that's what we will be installing on here. We'll also be installing a license plate light in the middle here. So we do need to route these wires up to the top and make our connection via our sub harness. This is the sub harness that I've been showing in the previous segments of this video. It plugs right in, terminates in the other connectors that we need for the other lighting equipment. So we'll be making use of that. All right, so we've chosen this guy and we're gonna have to figure out how to route that wire to the top. One option is very invasive. It requires drilling a hole underneath here. It would be a 1/4 inch hole. That requires permanently modifying your vehicle, but then you don't see any wires running down here. So I will leave that choice up to you. I'll show you what that looks like with the wires running down from our connection points up through the peg area. There's a nice little gap in here and in here that we can make use of to route our wires to the top. If you don't like that, if you want these things to disappear, I would encourage you to find a spot here right above the R. The R in the Aprilia sign has a little cut in it in the top. I would go maybe 5-6 millimeters up above that and drill a 1/4 inch hole, and that will enable you to route all of the wires through the same hole. In case you ever need to sell the bike, go back to stock, you could put one of these canoe clips that we used in to close out the holes left in our closeout piece. You can just push that in and it kind of looks stock. So no big deal, either way you choose it. I just don't want to cut up this bike. So I'm going to be routing our wires down kind of like this and up through the peg area. Let's get that assembly going and see what it looks like. Our pod signal mounting hardware comes in a kit with some fasteners. We will forgo the fasteners and just use the L brackets. The L bracket has a slot and a hole in it. I'm going to use the slot for the mounting to bike area. You need to make sure that this flat surface is parallel to the center plane of the bike. If you get that off angle, then your signals will not be lined up with the center plane of the bike. So, good rule of thumb here is kind of to match these surfaces. That looks pretty good. I'm just going to tighten that down. If there's need for adjustment later, I can do that. In the installation process of this low mount bracket, we did call out the necessity for using medium strength thread locking agent on this screw. It is even more important now that we're installing signals in this spot to have that thread locking agent in there, making sure that you don't lose your equipment. There's going to be more vibrations experienced in this area because of the extra bulk. So please consider that and make sure you have that thread locking agent in there. All right, now let's get one of the signals on. These signals will require a 12 millimeter open-ended wrench. Before I tighten it down, I'm gonna make sure that we have the center axis of this signal firing parallel with the ground. Tighten it down all the way. That's looking good. Now I'm gonna grab a flathead screwdriver, and then I'm gonna go from the top, find the area where we would exit by the peg. As you can see here, I have my little flathead protruding. I'm just gonna use this flathead to make myself a little bit extra gap in there. This will enable me to pass my wires up to the top. I'm gonna go one wire at a time because there's very limited space in there. The flathead is just used as a wedge. Creates just a little extra gap to pass these bullet connectors through. And if you get bound up, you could turn it slightly to force the plastic to have a slightly larger gap. Okay, that's pretty good. What I can do later is come in here with a small cable tie and cinch this down so that it's laying as flat to the subtray as possible, making it very minimally visible. I'm gonna go ahead and install the other side now. Now I'm gonna get our license plate light in place and also get it routed up. A little relief cut in here is meant for wire routing of the license plate light wire. When you drop the license plate light in here, it'll situate itself in that little divot, and then you could run that over behind this license plate bracket, down this same run of wire from the signals, and get that up into the subtray. Okay, I've adjusted my wire length appropriately here. I'm ready for subsequent steps. I'm gonna get my license plate in place. As you watch me assemble this license plate light onto this setup, you probably notice that there is a red strip of tape on the license plate light. That is an optional strip that is double-sided adhesive. It's made of 3M high bond type tape. It is permanent. Permanent in that you can remove it. It just won't stick anymore. But it is a very, very strong adhesive. If you want to go ahead and do that, that's cool. I typically forego that step because I've found that just a clamping force between our license plate and the actual license plate bracket is enough to keep this immobilized. If you notice that it's moving around on your particular bike due to some vibration, you can go ahead and use the adhesive and it'll give you the additional holding that you may need. All right. So at this point, I think I'm happy with everything. I'm just gonna neaten up the wiring. Got myself a couple small wire ties. I'm just gonna tie off to the kink bend in our license plate bracket. Pretty smooth and very minimal. I think that'll do it. I'm going to do the other side as well. All right, very nice. Now let's hop to the top of the bike and talk about some wiring, and then we'll be done. At this point, we will be making use of our TST Industries harness adapter for this bike. I'm going to take the bike connection plug, route it under this frame member to the compartment where we locate the vehicle plug. Get that connected. That's nice and neat now. Now, black will be common to both of the signals. Doesn't matter which way you plug them in. Black is black, it's ground. And then green will be the right side signal. So obviously we connect it to the right side signal lamp. And then brown is the remaining one for the left signal positive. Now make sure you have all of these insulating caps over the conductors. Like I showed in the previous segment, I highly recommend locking these down with electrical tape. Electrical tape is your friend here. You do want to lock these down, prevent any short circuits and blown fuses. It's also nice to just have these out of the way. So my recommended routing is under the fuse boxes and distributing the bulk on the right side of the bike. The connection of our license plate light Again, if you want to shorten this, that's cool. That's up to you. If you just want to bunch it up and tie it back up with maybe the twisty tie that we provided with this kit, the connection will be made here to these wires via the connectors that we ship with the license plate light, red to blue, black to black. I showed the installation method in a previous segment, so reference that please. Past this point, after everything's connected, you neaten things up, route them under things, preserve your trunk space, and then go to the reverse order of disassembly that has been documented in our fender eliminator video.
So there you have it. With the installation of our rear LED pod turn signals, we've been able to clean up the entire rear end of this RS 660, and using our low mount fender eliminator in this configuration really does streamline the entire look of the bike. And as you saw, if you opt for the high mount option, that really does clean it up quite a bit as well. So if you want to check this product out or any other product we may have for the RS 660 or any other bike in your garage, be sure to stop by our website, tstindustries.com. The link to this kit is in the description below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please, we want to hear from you. Leave them in the comment field below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell on to stay up to date with all the new videos we're putting out. And lastly, don't forget to stop by our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all username TST Industries. For now, this has been Mark and Bart from TST. Catch you all next time.